Hume, David Hume, I think he was an imperialist or skeptic. One of them. Main classes of phytoplankton are dinoflagellates and diatoms. Page 45, he wrote that we have no rational grounds. This is Hawkins still, the grand design.
Show me that smile again, show me that smile. Don't waste another minute on your crying. We're nowhere near the end, we're nowhere near the best is ready to begin.
So our sun will become a red giant. In a few billion years, it's about half over. It's only got 9 billion years in it. 4.5 billion has gone by. This is just guesstimate. But it doesn't matter exactly when the sun's going to explode because it's going to become a red giant that's going to become huge. Because after a billion years, the sun's going to become hot enough to start boiling our oceans. So we don't have a few billion years. We only got 1 billion years left. David Hume that wrote that we have no rational grounds to believe in objective reality, but we also have no choice but to act as if it is true. And that's it. So that's the time frame, right? That's the end. That's the end date for all not humankind, but all Pluto kind, Martian kind, all Mercury kind, all of our solar system, whatever we call we need to call our solar system something. Our fucking circular. Einstein's 1905 paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies. He talks about, let me just quote him, okay? So, the following reflections are based on the principle of relativity and on the principle of the constancy of the velocity of light. So, the only thing we know is that we're thinking substances, right? Descartes, so you doubt everything, but you can't doubt that you're a doubting substance. And so, therefore, we have no rational basis. All of our perceptions, it all could be a matrix. This could be one big fucking elaborate computer program. But it's not. And we have really no choice but to act as if it's true. That's just a fucking theory pulled out of your ass. Do you have any evidence based on it? Do you feel like, is there a plug in the back? Like, what? Why would you think that none of it, this is all one big computer game, huh? And we're all just battered. So those are two different principles, right? There's a principle of relativity, and then the principle, the constancy, that's more remarkable to me than the fucking relativity thing. The constancy of the velocity of light. So taking into consideration the principle of the constancy of the velocity of the light, we find, this and that equation. We have no rational grounds to believe in objective reality, but we also have no choice but to act as if it is true.
Show me that smile again. Show me that smile again. Show me that smile again. Oh, show me that smile. Don't waste another minute on your crying. We're nowhere near the end. We're nowhere near the best is ready to begin.
Objective reality. E equals mc squared. That is an objective reality. Undo all the science that we've ever done, and that will still be true, and it will still be rediscovered by future generations. It might take them a little bit longer if everything was wiped out. So he lists a whole bunch of things. There's realism. Realism is basically what is. If there's a bunch of zebras who have wearing bikinis, having a pool party, and that's what you see, well, that's what you get. What you see is what you get. That's realistic perspective. What is reality? That's what reality is. What you fucking see. Classical sciences, we have no rational grounds to believe in objective reality, but we also have no choice but to act as if it is true. So those are Einstein's words. And then he says this about time. It might appear possible to overcome all the difficulties attending the definitions of time by substituting the position of the small hand of my watch for time. And in fact, such a definition is satisfactory when we're concerned. So muscles need calcium, sodium, and potassium to contract. Calcium, sodium, potassium. When these three substances are imbalanced, it can lead to either muscle weakness or excessive contraction. Too much. Galileo's quote, Mathematics is the alphabet with which God has written the universe. There is a chapter 3 in this book, The Grand Design. It's written in published 2010, Stephen Hawking book. And on chapter 3, so chapter 2 is the rule of law. And then chapter 3 is, what is reality? So, what is it? What's reality? And how is that a fucking question? What's reality? It's that what is, okay? It is what it is. It's perfect tautology straight out of the fucking hills. So, what is reality? Now, I'm going to talk about his distinctions because he actually has some interesting distinctions. And his conclusion is we don't have a good grand unified theory. All we have are different models. And so every experiment is model dependent. Every theory, it's model dependent. What were your parameters when you did that experiment? Isn't that beautiful? That's wonderful. So actually, all reality, it's all math. And it can be figured out. So if you suck at math, then you suck at reality, which is an unfortunate reality for you. But hey, if you reach the speed of light, time reaches a standstill and your mass is infinite. So you could put that in your pocket and chew on that. Let's talk about it a little bit, okay? He says that we're in a goldfish bowl. So in terms of dimensions, right, we got 4 dimensions apparently. And if you were living in a goldfish bowl, you're a goldfish and you look at the world, you would have a distorted view of reality. But if you made calculations, even though it was distorted, if somehow you figured out the curvature of the thing and your calculations and your experiments and observations all held up, to experimentation, then therefore your calculations would not be wrong. It's based on a distorted view, but that's your worldview. So if you're calculating, it'd be harder to get to the same place essentially, but that's who are we to judge? And he starts out with a whole bunch of different paradigm shifts. One of the biggest one is when we went from Ptolemy to Copernicus. We went from a geocentric model to a heliocentric model of the universe. The whole universe is apparently Russia, the United States, Russia and the United States combined. We got all the nukes. 90 to 95% of the nukes, and I think we got most of our stashes off the coast of Seattle, which if you live in Seattle, that should not make you feel safe if you live in Seattle. Center of the globe, and 150 AD, Ptolemy come up with this geocentric model where he basically got it from Aristotle. And for 1,400 years, the Catholic Church adopted Ptolemy's geocentric model of the universe as the true and rightful universe, since they claimed monopoly of, truth about the science of the world. They had to all conform with their holy scriptures, right? They're a bunch of know-it-alls. And they said, well, clearly Ptolemy knows it's from Aristotle. Ptolemy got it from Eno, and it makes sense. Of course, God would make Earth the center of the universe because we're his chosen people, and therefore all the planets, all the suns, all the stars, everything that we see in the night, that's all just circling around us. It's not like the Earth is circling around the sun, which it is. Copernicus said that. He published On Revolutions of the Celestial Spheres the year of his death. Just Russia and the United States. It's also Israel. They got, 75, 400,000, maybe 1 million nukes. Nobody fucking knows because it's all secret. It's clandestine, but it's like obviously clandestine, right? Oh, what do you got in that big barn over there that is shaped like a nuclear warhead? So, 1 billion years. That's it. After 1 billion years, our oceans are going to be boiling, all that fish and the sharks, and the photoplankton, so the oxygen is going to change up and Copernicus, he wrote the book On Revolutions, and that's where the term revolution actually comes from, like revolutionary wars. In terms of history, revolutions, it's all a cycle, right? Just one big life and death cycle. Anybody that's got 4 seasons already knows about revolution. So published in the day of Copernicus's death, it was controversial. So he knew that saying the Earth revolves around the sun was controversial. What did he say? The Earth revolves around the sun? Well, what in Sam hell? Copernicus described a world with the sun at rest and the Earth going around the sun. So, but he did it right at the day, the year of his death, so he didn't get any of the pushback for it, but it's a scientific truth. Once you let that cat out of the bag, are you going to unlearn it? Are you going to unthink it? Are you going to unbelieve it? So Galileo, he was like, you know what? So 80% of the core of Earth is iron, 70% of the sun is hydrogen, 28% is helium. Most of the oxygen is from the ocean plants, 28% is from the rainforest. The biggest, paradigm shifts in science has probably actually brought upon the entire scientific revolution. Because if we've been saying shit's been true for 1,500 years and this one major fucking thing, right? Wait, you said the sun goes around the earth? This little tiny ball of dirt, that big ass ball of fucking gas that's just burning and burning, it's revolving around us. It's like saying that we revolve around the moon, right? So we got it right with the moon. So we got one little fucking planet that, circles around us, but nothing else. And it's ellipses, right? The planets are going on ellipses, and there's only 8 planets. Don't give me none of that bullshit. Galileo, he had a trial for heresy. He was put on house arrest for the rest. He had to wear an ankle bracelet for the rest of his life. He was forced to recant. Hey, you take that back, you son of a bitch. But he whispered, but it still moves. It still moves. Relativity is pretty much proven true every fucking which way. Einstein knows what's up, so Einstein's number 1, Hawkins number 2, I'm number 3. Camille, I listen to a lot of what Camille has to say. He's like super fucking genius. Relativity, global positioning system. The Air Force owns the global positioning systems, the GPS shit that people use on their phones. And so the satellites, they use the mathematics of relativity to compensate for the time dilation so they function properly. So, you trust in your GPS system, they're using relativity mathematics. So it's basically, I don't know, Einstein's been around for 100 fucking years, and people had plenty of time to discount him or contradict him if he was wrong about anything. And so I'm just going to, if Einstein said it, it's fucking true. The church said fuck you to Galileo, puts him on house arrest, forces him to say shit. Who are you going to believe? Us or your own damn eyes? And he was like, I guess I believe you all. And that was 1633. Eventually, the Catholic Church does apologize in 1992. It only took him, 660 years later, or 360 years later. So he's already dead. So what the fuck does that apology even mean at this point? Catholic Church got it wrong, and they put him on house arrest, and they killed Giordano Bruno and some other folks. So there's been martyrs of science. So that's the most famous sort of paradigm shifts, right? For 1,400 years, all the planets and shit revolved, and it was a circular fucking Earth. When the Bible was written, some people thought it was flat, but in terms of Ptolemy, 150 AD, 100 years after the fucking Bible and Jesus, apparently pi is the proportion of the circumference of a circle divided by the diameter, and it's the same number for all circles. Essentially what Stephen Hawking is going to conclude is not that Ptolemy is wrong, not that Copernicus contradicts Ptolemy, but that all the calculations under Ptolemy was the goldfish. They had a distorted view of all of reality, but if their calculations held up, then they were able to discover a lot of shit based on what they thought they knew. And so they're able to figure out the speed of light and a bunch of other shit. So the other things, because what is reality? That's the question. What is reality? So he's saying that because both of those models had a certain truth to them, and you could find out other truths, you could test it, and it confirmed with observations, then therefore it had its value in its day. But I don't know. I kind of reject that with Ptolemy and Copernicus. Copernicus fucking knocked Ptolemy out of the fucking world, right? What, you think the whole fucking thing goes around the Earth, Ptolemy? Like, get the fuck out. The first thermodynamics first law, right? Energy just keeps going in a circle. I know half of them. So entropy, this is a heat equation. I don't know. Field equation is Faraday. This is electricity. Schrodinger equation. He put a cat in a box. Schrodinger, he fucking killed a cat. he said, well, it was only half dead, and it's like, how can you have something that's half dead? What the fuck are you talking about, Schrodinger? And then you have Newton's first law, second law, third law. Newton's law of gravitation, that's the system of the world equation right there. That equation is the system of the world. Force is equal to the gravitational constant, which I thought was Newton meters, but it's time the mass is divided by radius squared, so it's divided by. Stephen Hawkins says, well, we all could be living in a matrix. We wouldn't know any better, right? We wouldn't know if we were in one or not. And if we lived in the matrix, we'd be that goldfish with a distorted, convex view of the world, a protuberant in a spherical form view of the universe. So it's called model-dependent realism. So there is realist and anti-realist, but ultimately the perfect balance between realist and anti-realist is model-dependent realism. What's your model? What model did you use? And then you have to take in, locality, causality, and identity into. The only thing we know for certain that is true for everybody all across the board is the speed of light. 300,000 kilometers per second, or 186,000 miles per second. The only thing I want to talk about is Lorentz factor, Lorentz equation. This one, gamma, I think they call it a gamma equation, and that's what relativity. That's the equation that the Air Force and relativity use to figure out how much time is going to be changed, because satellites are so much higher off of Earth. They don't have the same gravity, and so therefore their time is different than our time. I don't know if they're going faster or slower or how it's different, and it's very just, fucking nanoseconds. But that's enough, to throw multiplied nanoseconds, so eventually just a little bit, being off by a little bit can multiply over the years. So relativity is, nobody contradicts it. Nobody's given a good fucking argument against it. It's been around for 100 years, so I feel like that's the paradigm, right? Einstein's 1905 paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies, he talks about, let me just quote him, okay? So the following reflections are based on the principle of relativity and on the principle of the constancy of the velocity of light. So those are two different principles, right? There's a principle of relativity, and then the principle, the constancy, that's more remarkable to me than the fucking relativity thing. The constancy of the velocity of light. So taking into consideration the principle of the constancy of the velocity of the light, we find, this and that equation. So those are Einstein's words. And then he says this about time. It might appear possible to overcome all the difficulties attending the definitions of time by substituting the position of the small hand of my watch for time. And in fact, such a definition is satisfactory when we're concerned with the position of the small hand of my watch is time. How much time? Well, just look at my watch, look at a clock, how far that little hand goes, that's time. And he's like, well, that definition is actually satisfactory when we're concerned with defining the time exclusively for the place where the watch is located. So locality. Where is the location of that watch? What kind of watch is it? Is it an atomic watch? Is it just some? But it is no longer satisfactory when we have to connect in time series of events occurring at different places, or what comes to the same thing to evaluate the times of events occurring at places remote from the watch. We might, of course, content ourselves with time values determined by an observer stationed together with the watch at the origin of the coordinates and coordinating the corresponding positions of the hands with light signals given out by every event to be timed and reaching him through empty space. But this objective reality, E equals mc squared, that is an objective reality. Undo all the science that we've ever done, and that will still be true, and it will still be rediscovered by future generations. It might take them a little bit longer if everything was wiped out. So he lists a whole bunch of things. There's realism. Realism is basically what is. If there's a bunch of zebras who have wearing bikinis, having a pool party, and that's what you see, well, that's what you get. What you see is what you get. That's realistic perspective. What is reality? That's what reality is. What you fucking see. Classical science is based on the belief that there exists a real external world whose properties are definite and independent of the observer who perceives them. Classical science, certain objects exist and have physical properties, such as speed and mass, that have well-defined values. A herd of zebras fighting for a...
As long as we got each other.
Quote, there is no picture or theory independent concept of reality. Page 42, the grand design. So one example of realism being bullshit, according to quantum physics, which is an accurate description of nature. Again, Hawkins quote, page 44. A particle has neither a definite position nor a definite velocity unless and until those quantities are measured by an observer. So realism, well, it's not real until you take that picture, until you take that snapshot. In some cases, individual objects don't even have an independent existence, but rather exist only as part of an ensemble of many. Page 44. There's also the holographic principle. This is a 5-dimensional theory, which means we're the fucking goldfish. We only got 4 dimensions.
As long as we got each other, we got the world spin around in our hands, baby, you and me. We gotta be the luckiest dreamers who never quit dreaming. As long as we keep on giving, we can take anything that comes our way, baby, rain or shine. All the time, we got each other, sharing the laughter and love, sharing the laughter and love.
Holographic principle is a principle of string theories and a supposed property of quantum gravity that states that the description of a volume of space can be thought of as encoded on a lower dimensional boundary to the region, preferably a light-like boundary like a gravitational horizon. George Berkeley says, nothing exists but the mind and its ideas. I think he goes too far, but he's an anti-realist, right? Only the fucking mind and its ideas. Nah, bullshit. I think all this is real. The sound, the movement, me talking, the corner of my Bernie Sanders sign, me having a blue filter, so the only color that you see is that little tiny corner of my Bernie sign. All that's real. All that is real. But if you're colorblind, that might look green to you. And, you know, you can calculate the world based upon how you perceive it. So I understand the model dependent realism.
BJ Thomas, as long as we got each other. And now, get ready for who's going to help me. Who's going to help me bury graves? Who's going to help me dig these graves?
Hume, David Hume, I think he was an imperialist or skeptic. One of them, page 45, he wrote that we have no rational grounds. This is Hawkins still, the grand design. David Hume that wrote that we have no rational grounds to believe in objective reality, but we also have no choice but to act as if it is true. So the only thing we know is that we're thinking substances, right? Descartes, so you doubt everything, but you can't doubt that you're a doubting substance. And so, therefore, we have no rational basis. All of our perceptions, it all could be a matrix. This could be one big fucking elaborate computer program. But it's not. And we have really no choice but to act as if it's true. That's just a fucking theory pulled out of your ass. Do you have any evidence based on it? Do you feel like, is there a plug in the back? Like, what? Why would you think that none of it, this is all one big computer game, huh? And we're all just bad.
It's a brand new song I just heard from Whiskey Shivers. It was from that Passion, that Damnation. Brand new series is out. That's my show. If I could actually claim a show, that's my show. So I heard it with people like hitting on their guitars and like clapping.
Whole bunch of examples, right? The holographic principle, a 5-dimensional theory of reality. So our 4-dimensional world, we're the fucking goldfish. And the quantum physics thing where a particle doesn't even have a position or a velocity, not a definite one. until an observer clicks that snapshot. There was the Copernicus and Ptolemy. There's also the particle theory of light, Newton's rings. Newton had a problem. Newton's rings, you could look it up, but it was a conundrum. Well, if light is a photon, if light is a particle, then how does Newton's rings happen? Well, the wave theory proves Newton's wings. So now everybody in the 1900s was like, oh, so the particle theory is bullshit. Now it's a wave theory. Now we're like, it could be a particle, it could be a wave, who Big Bang theory, and apparently something about Einstein. So I guess I should fucking believe in it, right? And I said, well, 13.7 billion years ago is when the Big Bang happened. 13.7 billion years ago. Fossils and radioactive records knows, how far, millions of years. Now, but he was just saying that the Big Bang. So there's another theory that says there was a time before the Big Bang, but the evolution of the universe breaks down at the point of the first Big Bang. So if there was like another Big Bang before that Big Bang, then, all the rules of the universe broke down. And I don't know if that's, why would the rules of the universe wouldn't break down at the Big Bang unless the Big Bang's bullshit. So I don't believe everything Stephen Hawkins said, but he's a good cornerstone, A Briefer History of Time. We all should read. That's a good snapshot of a history of time. Think about that, the history of time. This is actually invert pictures. People who wear glasses, it's showing the thing upside down, the lens is, but our eyes correct it. So therefore, people who wear glasses have a completely different, perspective. Their reality, it's upside down, and the eyeball corrects it. So they have, just kind of like the colorblind thing. We cannot see electrons or quarks until maybe recently. But for 100 fucking years, physicians, scientists, capable, competent scientists didn't see the thing, but they had faith that it, that it exists. And I bet you they probably have faith in other bullshit too. There's a bunch of people that believe that the universe was static in the 1920s, but Hubble, he found out that we're expanding, but Fritz Zwicky, he disagrees with us expanding the universe. Stephen Hawking was saying if there was a Big Bang before the Big Bang, well, since, it all breaks, it just blows up, right? So, I don't know. It makes it sound like the Big Bang is just this big magical explosion. That sounds as fucking insane as God, right? God just claps. So maybe God was playing dynamite, right, threw a fucking grenade and, over by Neptune or something, and bam, the fucking universe happened. So he was in the kitchen, right, playing with dynamite, and then boom, Earth. So the glasses, the theory of light, the photoelectric effect, that was Einstein. So Albert Einstein showed that the photoelectric effect used in television and digital cameras could be explained by a particle or a quantum of light striking an atom and knocking out an electron. So light behaves as, there's two theories of light. There's the corpuscle particle theory of light, and then there's the wave theory, and then I guess there's three, right? There's the wave-particle duality, and that's what the photoelectric effect essentially said, that light behaves both as a particle and a wave. Light has a wave-particle duality. So what's true? What's right? Newton's rings, right? So, okay, then the electrons and the universe. Let's talk about the universe real fast. So he found out that all the galaxies were moving away from us, and the furthest away they were, the faster that they're moving. In fact, I heard that the galaxy is moving faster than the speed of light away from us, which blows my fucking mind. So the curvature of space-time somehow accelerates the speed of light. I thought the speed of light, isn't that the only fucking thing that we know, is nothing is faster than the speed of light? That's Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan said nothing. Einstein kind of said something like that. He said that the speed of light is constant. The velocity of light, that's what he said, the velocity of light. So not just the speed, but it's, force and mass. It's all of it, right? The entire velocity. But it doesn't even have mass, right? Or supposedly doesn't have mass. Anyways, that's Einstein figured out the Newton's rings fucking thing with the photoelectric effect by finding out that light behaves both as a particle and a wave. When it comes to the expanding universe, Fritz Zwicky said that light slowly loses energy as it travels great distances. And that makes sense to me. If you shine a flashlight, sometimes you can kind of see the end of a flashlight like it's a big lightsaber. And so light, the galaxy, perhaps that's the reason why it looks like the galaxies are moving faster away from us, because by the time the light gets to us, the event's gone. That was his explanation of Hubble. So we got three theories, right? So is the universe expanding? Is it contracting? Is it just some guy juggling a bunch of fucking planets and stars? Fritz Zwicky suggested that light slowly loses energy as it travels great distances, and that explains the effects that Hubble was seeing. Majority of people believe that in Hubble's thing that the galaxy is expanding. So it's not a static galaxy, it's just getting bigger and wider, and we got millions. There's like 100 million stars in one galaxy, and then we got like 100 million galaxies, so it's just like 100 million times 100 million, and they're racing faster than the speed of light away from us, and the farther that they're away from us, the faster they're going away from us. I mean, it's remarkable if Hubble's theory is correct. Which one's true? Which model, works? Which one can we use to predict things? Which one matches the observation? He thinks it should be elegant. To be honest with you, I find it remarkable. I find it unbelievable. Hawkins says that everybody believes in him and that, the model works, and so the evidence, all the physicists, this is a direct quote, all physicists believe in electrons even though you cannot see them. Page 48. Quarks we also cannot see. They are used to explain the properties of the protons and neutrons in the nucleus of an atom. Page 49. So we can't see electrons or quarks. They're said to construct neutrons and protons. They help explain the properties of the neutrons and protons in the nucleus of the atom. Now, apparently it was discovered in 1887 or some shit, but the guy just said, well, let's just call it an electron, and then that model has been working, but we've never actually fucking seen an electron. Now, there's been some suggestions. Some people are like, hey, I see an electron, but when I look into it, it don't. There was one example where the kid just took a battery and it took a wire, and then he just made it spark, and he said, see, those are electrons. Now, that static electricity, so that would be like electrons, but then somebody said, no, it's being ionized, and he had a whole different explanation for the whole thing. So somebody had just pointed this article out to me. This seems like this might actually be a good indication. The attosecond absorption spectroscopy, attosecond absorption fucking machine was used to observe electrons in real-time motion in 2010, the same date that he wrote the grand design. I feel like he would have mentioned that, oh, hey, guess what, we found the fucking electrons. Maybe he has, but this one article says that these Swedish, or this is another chameleism, so gluon imaging, spectroscopy, gluon imaging machine, process, the gluon imaging testing process, he says could probably figure out the quarks. But he said that, because of the indirect observables in reason and scientific theory, we were able to point a telescope right at the point where we thought Neptune was going to be, and boom, guess what came into view? Neptune, and all the vast darkness of the nighttime sky before anyone had seen it or knew that it existed. Essentially, the theories and logic and we already knew that Neptune had existed. So he's basically saying that even if it wasn't true, we can use all the indirect observables to find that electron. I'll be honest, I don't like it. I don't like it. Somebody said that black holes are the fabric of the entire universe. I haven't seen a Stephen Hawking quote say that yet, but that's going to be my next science thing is Stephen Hawking's opinion on black holes. If there's one thing Stephen Hawking would know about is black holes. So, I don't know. I don't feel like this guarantees it. I'd have to look into it more. They're using attosecond absorption. I don't even know how to say spectroscopy. And that now all of a sudden we see electrons. So, all right, let's just, for the time being, maybe there's something there. But that was in 2010. So physicists have believed in electrons without seeing them for 123 years. 1887 is when it was discovered. So they just had faith, blind faith, just with indirect observable. They never saw the data. And so only maybe we have seen an electron. That's about as far as I'm going to conclude, because I'm rejecting it all. The only thing I know right now is speed of light is constant for everybody all over the place, no matter how fast you're going. 186,000 miles. You turn on a flashlight, you light a fire, you have light coming out. Light is shining through all this space-time. You know, I don't know why it only goes shorter. Why it's got to have energy, right? So if it doesn't have enough energy backing it, and it takes years, but even though it takes 40,000 years for a photon to get out of the sun, which would make it as old as the dawn of man, that doesn't mean that time travel. I mean, time dilation. We might be able to go in the future, but only by nanoseconds. So what, you're going to live on a fucking space shuttle just so you can grow 3 seconds older? And that's another thing. The time dilation is only very, very small. So time's basically absolute. Energy equals mc squared, the speed of light squared. So what? Yeah, I know. 300,000. Basically, you just, you start speed of light, and then you end it, and then you just measure the distance, right? So with Jupiter and stars and just triangles, the power of triangles, just some simple physics. Wham, bam, thank you, man. 186,000, roughly 186. I think that's like 186,230, and then 300,000 kilometers. I wonder if kilometers kilometers per second. Exactly 300,000, exactly 186,000. I feel like I actually want to know the true fucking number, because why lie? Why are we lying? We're gonna estimate. We got it that close. Oh, 186,000, just 186,000, give or take. The quark model. Quarks might not exist either, right? Do electrons exist? Who cares? Just have faith, right? Quarks. E equals mc squared, and the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second for everybody, no matter what. Those are the only two fucking things I know so far in my massive skepticism of everything. So quarks may not exist, but they've been able to predict subatomic particles. So model-dependent realism. It's true because the model works. Observation proves it. It can be retested and proven. Therefore, it's good enough. So the research I found with electrons, we could see detailed chromosomes, but with a light microscope, with just a regular microscope that you can see you cannot see an atom. You can't even see, so talk about protons, you can't see electrons. You can't even see the atom with a light microscope. And I got all these cool-ass fucking equations here. That's what pi is. They have one, Newton's first law. It stays inert unless a force acts upon it. That's the equation for that. Then you have force equals to, I think, mass times acceleration. So that's, when you hit something, it fucking goes forward. And I know that's not a good explanation, but this one is the funnest one, because for every force, there's an opposite and equal reaction, right? So for you push it up, there's a force pushing down. So for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, because energy is never destroyed. So they work in tandem somewhat, but E equals mc squared is the only truth. The diffraction limit's about half a wavelength, about 200 nanometers, or 1,000 to 200 atoms. If materials existed that could refract X-rays, like glass refracts visible light, we could maybe make an X-ray microscope, but we don't have the materials. So the electron microscope images we usually see are from scanning electron microscopes, SEMs, which bounce a beam of electrons off a sample coated with metal. These do not have atomic resolution. Transmission electron microscopes, TEMs, send a beam of electrons through a sample, and the electrons are detected on the other side. If SEMs sound like medical ultrasound, TEMs are like an X-ray. So no, you cannot see a fucking electron. They have not seen a goddamn electron for 120 years, and they're in classes of phytoplankton are dinoflagellates and diatoms. This is your maxilla bone. This is your mandible. I think this is your frontal. then your zygomatic, right? Your collarbone, and then this is we're not doing that. Ostrich. The ostrich's eye is bigger than its brain, but you know they got tiny little brains, but they could run faster than a horse. So don't be giving an ostrich shit just because they got, you know, huge ass eyeballs and tiny little teensy tiny brains. It's not their fault. That's how natural selection and evolution, you know, created them. So I guess it might be the environment that's kind of climate change, right? We're going to about the Swedish videotaped and a moving electron riding on a light wave. So electron is just kind of riding on a light wave. Scientists in Sweden filmed the subatomic particle, the electron, for the first time. Electron is approximately 1,867 times smaller than a proton and is constantly moving. The physicists in the U.S. claim to have used TEM to see a single hydrogen atom. First time a TEM has been used to image such a light atom. The breakthrough is made by supporting the atom on graphene, a sheet of carbon just one atom thick. The team has also been able to watch hydrocarbon chains move across the graphene surface, suggesting that the technique could be used to study the dynamics of biological molecules. So 2009 is the first time we got a picture of a molecule. You change your underwear, you can wear the same pants for the rest of your life. And if a woodpecker, it pecks 1,000 times stronger than the force of gravity. So how strong is gravity? It's not strong at all. It's very light, but the acceleration, so it accelerates exponentially, but the constant is the gravitational constant is very, very small. A woodpecker, it pecks, right? It just pecks on a tree, and that is a harder force, 1,000 times harder force than gravity. So gravity is only 1/1,000th of a peck, of a woodpecker peck, which isn't much of that's not very much of a force at all now, is it? In 2022, we're going to see a big explosion. We're going to see a red nova. This is a prediction, and they're almost like, this is Carl Sagan, right? The great Carl Sagan. He says you can get up to about 99.9% the speed of light, but you can never break 186,000 miles per second. That's the fastest in the universe. You can't go faster than the speed of light. So that gives us, you know, some basis. We know something now, right? So all of our other calculations can be based upon the constants of the velocity of light, as Einstein said it. So one piece of paper is 500,000 atoms thick. Planck links, theoretically, is the smallest known unit. GPS systems owned by the Air Force, they use relativity calculations. Now, when it comes to being real, right, I don't like fake people. You got to be real. But what's fucking reality? What would those, if being real, is that actually being real, or like quantity? Speed of light is also the speed of causality. Causality. So the speed of light, speed of causality, they're one and the same. So that should clarify things for you. In 2022, Cygnus, a luminous red nova, is going to happen, and it's a stellar explosion thought to be caused by the merging of two stars. So in the Cygnus constellation, you got these stars that's like circling. They're going to get closer and closer together, and then they're going to blow up into a luminous red nova. They're characterized by a distinct red color, a light curve that lingers with resurgent brightness in the infrared. Luminous red nova are not to be confused with standard nova explosions that occur on the surface of white dwarf stars. We have 9 nuclear countries on. Stupid-ass Aristotle was like, oh yeah, it all circles around the earth, because he had to have it, make it elegant. His theory needed to be pretty. And he said it was all fire, earth, water, and air. That was all that he thought it was. He broke it down like, that's everything. Okay, earth, water, air, fire. I like the, I like the chemical fucking elements. It's kind of sad that we've never seen electrons. So I can't trust that electrons truly exist. Maybe that, one thing is happening. And even if they do exist for 123 fucking years, physicists did not see the damn thing but believed in it anyways. So, I'll look into it a little bit more. But the standard model, it's inelegant, but it's predicted things correctly, but you have to adjust some of the parameters. Then you have, let's see, that one video that I was talking about, the kid with the battery, I got the explanation here, and then coming, so you shouldn't be worried about the sun exploding into a red nova or anytime. Apparently our sun can't even, descend into a black hole. It's not big enough. Our little weakling fucking star, it can't even, if it doesn't get big enough, it's not big enough of a star to turn into we don't even know where that damn black hole is. We're saying that it ties the entire universe together. Sagittarius A star, the fucking asshole, the closest black hole to us, and it's like, somewhere over there in that general vicinity, there might be a black hole. Holy shit, this thing's going to hold the entire galaxy together, and we just kind of guess in the general vicinity where this thing is. I wish we had a little bit more certainty. We are certain that the United States, Russia, UK, France, China, India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea possess about 17. I said, what you're not seeing is not electrons, but plasma. It was a comment underneath a YouTube video. Plasma is highly ionized air. And when you put the wire really close to the terminal of the battery, the electromagnetic field is just about able to pass the current to the other terminal. As this happens, the voltage charges the air molecules, which then emits light. So the voltage charges air molecules, and that emits light. So is that not electrons? I thought electricity was all electrons, isn't it? And electrons, just like little electrons just floating through that's how we have light, that's how we have... So the models, you got the phlogiston theory, the Ptolemaic model, Big Bang theory, Aristotle's four-element theory. The Earth was 6,000 years old. Einstein's 1905 paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies. He talks about, let me just quote him, okay? So the following reflections are based on the principle of relativity and on the principle of the constancy of the velocity of light. So those are two different principles, right? There's a principle of relativity, and then the principle, the constancy, that's more remarkable to me than the fucking relativity thing. The constancy of the velocity of light. So taking into consideration the principle of the constancy of the velocity of the light, we find, this and that equation. So those are Einstein's words. And then he says this about time. It might appear possible to overcome all the difficulties attending the definitions of time by substituting the position of the small hand of my watch for time. And in fact, such a definition is satisfactory when we're concerned with phlogiston theory, the substance supposed by 18th century chemists to exist in all combustible bodies and to be released in combustion. So, right, fire is made up of everything, so clearly there must be fire inside of everything, so that's what the phlogiston theorist thought. The phlogiston theory is a superseded scientific theory that had postulated that a fire-like element called phlogiston is contained within combustible bodies, and it's released during combustion. That's how things burn up, because it has phlogiston in it. And that's because of Aristotle's stupid ass. The name comes from the ancient Greek phlogiston, burning up, and from something that means flame, some Greek characters which means flame. So Einstein was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, or the Nobel Prize in 1921 for the photoelectric effect. The objective reality, E equals mc squared. That is an objective reality. Undo all the science that we've ever done, and that will still be true, and it will still be rediscovered by future generations. It might take them a little bit longer if everything was wiped out. So he lists a whole bunch of things. There's realism. Realism is basically what is. If there's a bunch of zebras who have wearing bikinis, having a pool party, and that's what you see, well, that's what you get. What you see is what you get. That's realistic perspective. What is reality? That's what reality is. what you fucking see. Classical science is based on the belief that there exists a real external world whose properties are definite and independent of the observer who perceives them. Classical science, certain objects exist and have physical properties such as speed and mass that have well-defined values. A herd of zebras fighting for a...
Who's gonna dig these graves? Who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own. Who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves?
The electric effect was pretty huge deal. It's the law. So it's like the law of gravity. Someone was like, it's a law. Okay. And you can make any law, but it does give it a greater sense of authority, right? It's not a theory, it's a law. So he was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1921 for his discovery of the law of the photoelectric effect. Other phenomena where light affects the movement of electric charges include the photoconductive effect, also known as photoconductivity or photoresistivity, the photovoltaic effect, and the photoelectrochemical effect. So model-dependent realism. Right? If the model works, this is Hawkins quote, there seems to be no single mathematical model or theory that can describe every aspect of the universe. Page 58. M theory is a network of theories, but no single theory within the network.
Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own. Preacher tells ya Jesus saves all in a full work day, steady busy getting paid. He can't do it all his own. I said, who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it all my own.
Three fundamental unfalsifiable axioms of science are the principles of causality, which the speed of causality is the same as the speed of light. So speed of light, speed of causality, they're... Anyways, three fundamental unfalsifiable axioms of science, the principles of causality, locality, and identity. Where is it, who's doing it, and what's causing all of it. So that's the unfalsifiable axioms, according to John Camilli. So that's a Camilliism. Now, 70% of the world's oxygen comes from the ocean, not from trees. So, yeah, trees are delicious, but phytoplankton is where 70% of the oxygen is coming from, the ocean, from those, phytoplants.
Dollars in a golden tree. Who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own.
Rainforest, now that's something, 28% of the world's oxygen comes from the rainforest. So we don't need any of the trees in the United States, which I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying the rainforest, 28% of the oxygen of the world's oxygen comes from the rainforest. 70% comes from the phytoplankton. Those it said marine animals. I feel like they're plants, though, aren't they? They got phytoplankton. They're the plants inside the ocean too, right? So they're actually not just on top of the ocean. So the plant, fucking ocean plants. Ocean plants are what's giving us all the oxygen, 70% of the oxygen. So technically, we don't even really need the rainforest. It'd make it harder to breathe, I would assume. I'm not advocating get rid of the rainforest or any trees, actually plant trees. Johnny Appleseed here, fucking plant marijuana. There should be...
No, who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own. Preacher tells you Jesus saves all in a full work day. Who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own.
Theory within the network can describe every aspect of the universe, all the forces of nature, the particles that feel those forces, and the framework of space and time in which it all plays out. Page 58. No unified theory, but that's okay. Model-dependent realism, right? It's all about your model. It's about the identity, the locality, what is, just detail those things. Make sure the other person isn't colorblind if color matters in your experiment. Make sure that consciousness, that your senses correspond with other people's senses. And yay, model-dependent realism. I feel like it's a little too constructivist for my taste. I like the idea of an objective reality. E equals mc squared is an objective reality, right? God writes the universe in math. And this is actually where Stephen Hawkins takes us to alternative.
Sun done ran out of rays. I've been waiting on a southbound train, trying not to go insane, but I can't do it all my own. Hey, who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it all my own. Who's gonna dig these graves? What? Who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it all my own.
The Earth, at its core, is a bunch of iron, and that's where the entire electromagnetic field comes from. So the core of Earth is iron. So that's amazing, right? How they find that? It's all magma. It's all lava and magma, right? So, and then it's just the outer shell is lava and magma. The center core is solid. And I heard if you're in the center of the Earth, gravity is zero because you have gravity. You have Earth on top of you in all places. So you would actually be at point zero, at point whatever, the ground zero. That's not what they call it, but that's what I'm calling it for right now until I know better. Hydrogen, 70% of the sun is hydrogen, 20% to 28% of the sun is helium, which is the same numbers for oxygen when it comes to the ocean plants and the rainforest, hydrogen and helium, the tropical rainforest. So in 2008, there's a story where you had a broken arrow. So in the United States, they're moving the nuclear weapons from the north side to the south, and it was sitting on the military base, and nobody knew about it for days. So all these nuclear weapons are just sitting in the parking lot at a military base. So I guess that's for 24 hours. Okay, so it was pretty bad, but it's not that bad. Right, we lived 6.67 times 10 to the. So the heart, muscle, and nerve cells use electrolytes to carry electrical impulses to other cells. So you don't have fire in your body, you got electricity. You got bolts of lightning. So the heart, muscle, nerve cells. So drink Gatorade or Powerade or just, electrolytes. Calcium, just eat calcium straight out of the calcium tube in the sodium box. Potassium. Of course, we know what the hell is inside the sun. It's not like it's a big burning fucking ball of gas. It just keeps burning and burning, and it just, without explanation, it's like the burning bush, right? It just keeps on fucking burning. It's like, what are you burning? Our self. We're just keep on nuclear fission. So it's hydrogen. 70% of the sun is hydrogen. 28% is helium. Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen make up 1.5%. The other 0.5% is small amounts of many other elements such as neon, iron, silicon, magnesium, and sulfur. So, of course there's magnesium and neon and silicon, iron, carbon. In the sun, of course there 40,000 years. Why does it take a photon go 40,000 years? That's like since the dawn of man. The light that we're getting shine on our is your unified theory of everything. What is your theory of everything? Because quantum mechanics and relativity are kind of opposed to each other, and they're not reconciled. So what's your theory? There is no theory of everything. We don't have a unified theory of everything. And, you know, that's okay, says Stephen Hawkins. I don't like it. So let's just go with the model-dependent realism. It's all the rage. It's the bee's knees. It's solid. Boss man, it's solid. Bonus. Big bonus. And he leads all this to what is reality in next chapter, which I'm not even interested in it, but alternative histories in quantum physics. The universe doesn't just have a single existence or history, but rather every possible version of the universe exists simultaneously in what is called a quantum superposition. The theory has passed every experimental test to which it has ever been subjected. About the Swedish videotaped in a moving electron riding on a light wave. So electron is just kind of riding on a light wave. Scientists in Sweden filmed the subatomic particle, the electron, for the first time. Electron is approximately 1,860.
Who's gonna dig these graves? Who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own. Who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own. Preacher tells ya Jesus saves, all in a full work day, steady busy getting paid. He can't do it all his own. I said, who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it all my own. Dollars in a golden tree.
There seems to be no single mathematical model or theory that can describe every aspect of the universe. Page 58.
Who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own. No, who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own. Preacher tells ya Jesus saves, all in a full work day. Who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own.
It's just, you know, one thing leads to, I mean, if your oceans are boiling, I don't know how you compete, how do you stop that? Like, you would burn yourself, right? If the planet is so damn hot that it's reached the boiling, so we're cooked unless we dig deep enough, but that's like magma, so we'd have to colonize fucking another solar system. That's the only way we'll get out.
Sun done ran out of rays. I've been waiting on a southbound train, trying not to go insane, but I can't do it all my own. Hey, who's gonna dig these graves? Oh, who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own. Who's gonna dig these graves? What? Who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own.
This is actually invert pictures. People who wear glasses, it's showing the thing upside down, the lens is, but our eyes correct it. So therefore, people who wear glasses have a completely different, you know, perspective. Their reality is upside down, and the eyeball corrects it. Metal, these do not have atomic resolution. Transmission electron microscopes, TEMs, send a beam of electrons through a sample, and the electrons are detected on the other side. If SEMs sound like medical ultrasound, TEMs are like an X-ray.
As long as we got each other, we got the world spinning around in our hands, baby, you and me. We gotta be the luckiest dreamers who never quit dreaming. As long as we keep on giving. We can take anything that comes our way, baby, rain or shine. All the time, we got each other, sharing the laughter and love, sharing the laughter and love.
What is your unified theory of everything? What is your theory of everything? Because quantum mechanics and relativity are kind of opposed to each other, and they're not reconciled. So what's your theory? There is no theory of everything. We don't have a unified theory of everything. And, you know, that's okay, says Stephen Hawkins. I don't like it. So let's just go with the model-dependent realism. It's all the rage. It's the bee's knees. It's solid. Boss man, it's solid. Bonus. Big bonus. And he leads all this to what is reality in next chapter, which I'm not even interested in it, but alternative histories in quantum physics. The universe doesn't just have a single existence or history, but rather every possible version of the universe exists simultaneously in what is called a quantum superposition. The theory has passed every experimental test to which it has ever been subjected.
Graves, what? Who's gonna dig these graves? Somebody help me dig these graves. I can't do it on my own.
So no, you cannot see a fucking electron. They have not seen a goddamn electron for 120 years, and they're